Hey, man.
No, I remember one time him and I were just scheduling stuff, and he's like, "Yeah, I got my big family vacation this week." And I'm like, "Oh man, sick. What are you doing?" It's like, "Oh, me and my fam are going up to bed horses." I'm like, "What? What do you mean?"
That's it's a wild dynamic. What's going on, everybody? Good evening. Welcome to the Stochastic.com NFL Live Before Lock, little preseason action. 2 games today. We had 1 game Hall of Fame. Tomorrow we'll have 6. And we'll get Matt's thoughts on Jameson Williams getting doused with preseason reps, whatever that means. But first, we got Houston and New England. We got Seattle hosting the Minnesota Vikings. And we're here for it, baby. Happy you guys are here as well. Hit that thumbs up if you haven't done so yet. Subscribe to the channel as well. Tell your friends about the Stochastic YouTube channel. Help us on our journey to 100,000 subscribers so we can get that sick play button. But no, in all seriousness, we don't care about that. We want to win. I'm Dave Loughran, _D, joined by Matt Gajewski. Some may call him the preseason pioneer, at Matt_Gajewski on Twitter. What's up, brother?
Not much, man. Just really excited for football again. I know last week having trouble sleeping before the Hall of Fame game, and this week might be even better. We get legit NFL players tonight, at least on the Houston side. We'll get into all that, but man, football's back. I know some of you are going to wait another 4 weeks, but I couldn't be more excited to talk about the preseason with you.
Yeah, man, I'm looking forward to it. I put my betting video out for today. I already recorded the one for tomorrow. Some interesting games. Of course, the Ravens this weekend, they're 6-point favorites in the preseason. But eventually, I was actually on a betting show with Joe Pisapia from Betting Pros today, and we were talking about that. It's like, eventually, Baltimore can start winning all of these games, but eventually, like, they're going to stop covering at a 95% clip. Like, something has to give.
I wonder if they have a new OC this year. I wonder at some point if the offensive coordinator doesn't get in the head coach's ear and just say, look, like we have guys that have been banged up, Bateman especially. We need to sit some of these guys. Like Lamar's dealt with injuries. We can't be risking these. Maybe it just comes down to different signal callers. So it's hard to bet against the Ravens. I don't know what their current streak is or the current numbers.
23 straight wins, and they're 21-2 against the spread.
I knew it was ridiculous, but
it's insane, dude.
To your point, the market is one, adjusting, and two, you got a new play caller. I don't know. Maybe some point it changes. We'll probably get an indication early this year. Like if Lamar's out there and stuff, maybe they do cover.
Yeah. Watch Bateman plays all 4 quarters on Saturday.
Yeah, fresh off his injury, fresh off PUP.
I think a lot of it too, though, is that there's just like archetypes of Lamar Jackson at the 2nd string and 3rd string quarterback. They're not as good, but they can run the same plays. So
yeah, they're really unique in the guys they target behind him.
For sure. But anyway, happy you guys are here. We got 2 games to talk about today. Very much excited to break this down with Matt and to I follow football as closely as anyone. I'm doing the run sheet. I'm looking at Matt's projections and I'm going, some of these names seem actually made up to me. Like some of these names are names that you would just put into like a word scramble and it spits it out. I've never heard of them, but some of them are topping our list of projections today. So let's dive into it. We'll go let's go team by team today, make it a little bit easier because there's so many different players. Like it's got to be 12 wide receivers for Houston projected for fantasy points. We can weed through some of this, but let's start with them. Let's start at quarterback first, though. You got Texans, Patriots. Texans are 3.5-point favorites, 37.5-point total, 35-point total in that second game. And the running back position with the Vikings is really interesting, trying to find that backup behind Madison. But let's start at quarterback. Stroud, Mills, and Keenum is not a bad QB room for a preseason game. Stroud is going to start, according to rookie head coach DeMeco Ryans. Then we'll see Mills and Keenum. How are you breaking down the playing time here between these 3?
Yeah, and as we go through each one, I'll try to really isolate who we want in our player pool, who we want to actually target when we get there. It's tough starting with Houston. They're probably the weakest team to target across the board just because they are going to play some starters. Yeah. It's not just Stroud. And that makes sense. I mean, they've got the number 2 overall pick. You want to evaluate him, see if he's ready, probably install stuff in your offense still. And to do that, you need some of your starters to play. So right away at the QB position, definitely the best room. I think Stroud's probably going to play somewhere between 2 series and a quarter. And then Mills and Keenum probably split the rest. So right away, you've got 3 guys here, probably the most talented. So you're towing the line between not playing as much, but actually having some NFL talent. It's my least favorite situation to target overall, but I am taking a couple shots on Stroud just because he has mobility. This is a record-breaking signal caller from Ohio State and a really high draft pick. He's probably the most talented player that's actually going to be on the field tonight. So you do have to balance that out. But overall, it's a pretty difficult situation to target. I'm expecting Stroud to play max a quarter and then Davis, Mills, and Keenum somewhere between a quarter and a half, but a little bit of volatility there between all 3.
It's an ugly one, especially when you look at like the Drew Lock and Holton Allers. Those are the only 2 guys. Maybe you think Geno plays today. I saw we had him predicted for a few. I wouldn't be. I don't think. I'm not sure he plays at all. Jaron Hall, Nick Mullins. You're likely only seeing 2 there. Patriots are interesting. Of course. Do you want to go position by position here, or do you want to go team by team? What makes it easier for you to analyze those?
Maybe we'll go position by position.
It might be a little easier now that I think
Yeah.
about it. Yeah, I think so. I mean, I don't mind going through the position at each team. Actually, that might make some sense too.
We can do that. I'm cool talking either way. I'll just focus on who we want to target.
Like Patriots quarterbacks, Trace McSorley, Bailey Zappi, Malik Cunningham. Do you think there's any chance Mac Jones plays tonight?
No, he didn't play much last year, and that was, a little less certain even. So I don't think we see Mac Jones. Historically, we don't see a lot of the Patriots starters.
Malik Cunningham's the highest paid undrafted free agent rookie ever. $200,000 guaranteed contract. And they're talking about converting him into a wide receiver. What are you doing with the quarterbacks for the Patriots tonight?
I think Mac Jones is probably going to sit. I think Bailey Zappi has solidified himself as the backup. And even in previous preseasons, Hoyer's been there in the past. We haven't always gotten long looks at Hoyer. We've gotten long looks at third stringers, and McSorley's pretty clearly the third string. Cunningham has mostly played receiver at camp. They moved him to quarterback on August 7th. That was a couple days ago. He spent like 11 days practicing with receivers. I don't see him as an option to actually make this team at the quarterback position. Really athletic, but I mean, I don't even know if they're going to try to evaluate him. It just kind of seems like a lost cause. Whereas McSorley's had really productive preseasons before. He's a player they might want to actually stick around on the practice squad. So I'm approaching this as if McSorley is going to get somewhere between a quarter and a half, which is really valuable given the rushing upside he's displayed in the past. Last year, 5 rush attempts, 42 yards, 1 score. Really good rushing efficiency. And he played 145 snaps last preseason, albeit with a different team. With that said, the Patriots kind of approach this where preseason week 1, their third string gets a lot of reps. I'm going to play a decent amount of McSorley. Can tell you the exact exposures right now, but I think he's a cut behind the next 2 guys, but it's not that far.
I'll tell you what, though. I think when you're looking at, and so I wanted to get a tweet out here that we were live. I think that. Yeah, I think the quarterback situation is most interesting when you look at this second game, because you have Jaron Hall and Nick Mullins. Jaron Hall, 5th round rookie. BYU, Nick Mullins, and then Drew Lock and Holton Allers. Pete Carroll did say that he wanted to get an extended look at Drew Lock. Let's not forget, last year he was locked in a quarterback battle to start between him and Geno Smith. So those guys were splitting reps early in the preseason. Drew Lock was out with an illness for one of those games, but week 1 they split. Let's talk about both of these teams with quarterback, because this is where it gets really unique. Really only 2 quarterbacks likely to see the field for both of these teams. Lower total in this game, but there could be some real opportunities here.
Absolutely. If you're only playing a couple lineups, these are the 2 quarterbacks you want to use. If you're playing 150, these are the guys you want to be most exposed to. Starting with Minnesota, Cousins isn't going to play here. Mullins is pretty locked in as the backup. He was the backup last year, only played 60 snaps. You break that down, maximum, I think you're probably going to see a quarter and a half from him. Jaron Hall's a guy they actually drafted. They want to get a long look at this guy, see if he can possibly supplant Mullins as the backup. He's really mobile. He played at BYU, good rushing equity. And if you go back and look at his rushing stats, did tail off a little bit at the end of the year. He got injured. He has really good rushing pedigree, which scores well for preseason DFS for sure. 6 feet, 207 pounds, good stature there. He's going to get probably a quarter, if not a little bit more. I wouldn't be surprised if he takes the field in the first half at some point. For Holden Ahlers, I think there's a little bit more uncertainty with him. To your point on the Geno Smith stuff, if you look at his preseason last year, true quarterback battle, different situation here. So you kind of have to go back and look at how Pete Carroll used Russell Wilson, and he's not a guy that played a ton in the preseason. So I do think we see Locke. And again, Locke's probably going to get around a quarter to a half. Second half should be all Holden Ahlers. And this is another guy that can rush too. He had nearly 1,500 rushing yards in 4 seasons with East Carolina. I think just with the uncertainty with Geno Smith, I would put Jaren Hall slightly ahead of Holden Ahlers, but those are the top 2 guys. I think it's pretty clear there with Trace McSorley being your 3rd ranked quarterback.
What's interesting about Holden Ahlers or Ahlers, I don't know. One or the other. Is it Ahlers? Is that how you pronounce it?
I've always called him Holden Ahlers, but
Ahlers. Okay, yeah.
Doesn't matter.
He's a direct bloodline descendant of a very famous actual Viking. Okay. Ragnar Lothbrok. You've never seen the Viking show on History Channel.
Did you uncover this in your betting?
Dude,
you're betting.
What the fuck do you think?
I think you were researching betting this game and you came across the bloodlines for
obviously, dude, yeah. You have no idea the type of stuff I come across when I'm looking up this betting stuff. Ragnar Lothbrok was like the main Viking character, just an absolute savage, like historical figure. This dude traced his bloodline back, and he is a bloodline direct descendant of him. I mean, Matt, is it any coincidence that he's playing his first NFL game against the Vikings?
Laffy's got this guy's 23andMe, DM'd him, got all of the information here. That is pretty funny. Yeah. And I mean, I think regardless, this is a guy, I mean, you can look at his physical stature. He's pretty big. He's got good athleticism, and he ran in college. So, I mean, I guess it kind of makes sense.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I guess it depends. Do you think we get a half from both of these guys?
Yeah, I think around there. They're both projected around a half for us.
I think it's going to be a half each too. They're only carrying 3 quarterbacks, right? So
right.
It would make sense unless you're getting like 2.5 from Locke and then 1.5 from Ahlers. I guess that could be the case, but this is an interesting one. If you were to rank all of the quarterbacks, how would you rank them today? For not all of them. I'm not asking you to rank but like your top 3 or top 4, because I think this game with each team only carrying 3 QBs and probably only playing 2 makes it more unique than the other.
Yeah. Number 1 would be Jaren Hall. Number 2, Holden Ahlers. Number 3 would be Trace McSorley. And I don't have a strong preference in the backups. I think you can mix in Drew Locks. I think you can mix in Nick Mullins. I'm probably not going to play a lot of Zappy or Malik Cunningham. Real wild cards, what you do with Houston. I'm probably with the field, honestly. I think these guys are going to be like single digit owned. Got a little bit of Case Keenum, but not much.
So let's talk about some running backs. If you don't mind, I want to start with Dwayne McBride and Ty Chandler, and we can move around here. We'll make sure to cover everything. We will leave no stone unturned for you guys. As long as we get to 100 thumbs up, that's all we ask. Got 600 people with us right now. Very doable. Subtle reminder to atone for your sins here on the Live Before Lock show and hit that thumbs up. Appreciate you in advance because we will get there. But like the whole, you and I have done a lot of best ball drafts, and a lot of it is, all right, so who's going to be the backup behind Madison now that Dalvin Cook is gone? Do you think it's possible that these guys split like all of the reps at running back today?
I think we see a fair amount of that. They're not carrying a lot of running backs on the roster. You've got 5, and 2 of them aren't going to play. Madison, if he plays at all, this is going to be like a handful of snaps, and I would be shocked if it occurs. Kenny Nwangwu has been dealing with an injury. He also has special teams ability. Like whether he wins the backup job or not, he's going to be kept on the roster. So I don't think they're going to rush him back by any means. Ty Chandler and McBride probably see most of the work here. They just signed Abram Smith on August 5th. This is an XFL guy. He's a warm body in camp, just with Nwangwu being injured. They need a guy to run with the scout team. No chance of him making the roster. Ty Chandler is ahead of McBride right now. I think that's largely just because McBride's a 7th-round rookie coming from a gimmicky offense in UAB where they never threw the ball. So he's got a lot of adjustment to the NFL. He's come on a little slow, according to reports. All that makes sense if you look at where he came from. If you're breaking a tie here, I do think they probably look a little bit more at McBride just because he has a lot more to learn. But these are two of the top backs on the slate. I have a slight preference towards McBride, but a fair amount of both of them.
Yeah, because if you look at some of these other teams, okay, for example, let's take these Houston running backs. How many of them are going to get opportunities today? I suppose Valladay is somebody that we're interested in. You have him projected pretty nicely. I'm just looking at projections now, and I'm not surprised that you have McBride and Chandler, two of the three highest projected players. You have Kevin Harris at the top today, though, against Houston. Interesting. And JJ Taylor there as well. So the top 4 projected running backs are New England and Minnesota, and 5 of the top 4, sorry, and 5 of the top 7 are Minnesota and New England, because you got Pierre Strong in there as well.
Yeah, these two teams are just carrying 5 backs apiece, and you're only going to see 3 of them play. Both teams, Minnesota and New England. It's a similar situation in New England here, but I think Pierre Strong has carved out the backup role pretty, I guess it's not for sure. They're going to look at Kevin Harris, but I think we can guess that Pierre Strong is going to be the backup here, probably play a little bit less. They're going to carry a third running back. I don't know if it's going to be Kevin Harris or JJ Taylor. Ty Montgomery's been injured, so I think they're going to look at these two guys in different roles, but give them both a lot of snaps. Last year, Kevin Harris, 15 snaps in the first preseason game, 13 carries. JJ Taylor's been with the team a little longer, but he profiles more in that Ty Montgomery role. The guy's only 5'6", 190 pounds, catches a lot more balls. He also had 15 snaps last preseason, week 1, 14 carries. I think you probably see Pierre Strong start this with a Zappy unit, and then Harris and JJ Taylor clean it up. So I don't think it's quite as cut and dry as the Minnesota situation. But in the preseason, you see elevated run rates that benefits Harris. So between the two, slight preference there over JJ Taylor. But I think most people should be playing 3 running backs in your lineups, mixing and matching the 2 Minnesota guys, Chandler and Dwayne McBride, as well as Kevin Harris and JJ Taylor makes a lot of sense in most lineups.
How comfortable are you with lineups that have 2 of New England or 2 of Minnesota running backs?
Completely fine. When I was making my lineups in Fantasy Cruncher, I made a rule that said at most 2 from each of these teams. So that way you don't end up like with a rogue lineup that has 3 New England backs or something, but completely fine with it. Tons of lineups with it. Just don't want any more than 2.
What about SaRodorick Thompson for Seattle today?
Oh, this is a guy. I think he's good in GPPs. So when you get to Seattle and when you get to Houston, I like mixing in some of the guys. You have to read the tea leaves a little bit more for these two teams just because they're carrying more running backs. Seattle specifically, you're not going to see Kenny Walker. You're not going to see Kenny McIntosh, but they still have 5 running backs, even with the 2 injuries. Charbonnet probably plays a little bit. He's coming off an injury. DJ Dallas is there. I think they know exactly what they have in him. And Seattle's a team that is probably going to play their second and third string quite a bit in this game. If you look at those players, it's SaRodorick Thompson, it's Bryant Koback, and it's Wayne Talapapa. Of those 3, SaRodorick Thompson has the best profile. This is a guy that went to Texas Tech, whereas Koback, he went to Toledo, and Talapapa transferred 1 year at Washington. Not very productive there.
Now you're just bragging with this obscure knowledge of, oh yeah, 1 year transfer.
Went to Virginia for 3, I think, then transferred to Washington. But yeah, Thompson, decent size here. He's over 200 pounds, and he's a player that can handle a workload on the ground. So reading the tea leaves here, I think Thompson sees the most work for Seattle. I still think it's pretty close, which is why there's such a gap between the New England runners, between the Minnesota runners, and then Seattle, then Houston, definitely a tier break. But for GPPs, I'll be mixing in Thompson.
William said, God, I forgot about the DJ Dallas pick, nightmare fuel. Yeah, I remember that too. Like if you go into DraftKings and you pull up his headshot.
Yeah, DJ Dallas. I remember way back in the day making NFL draft videos. I think it was before I worked here. Made a video about all the running backs in his class, and I was throwing some shade to DJ Dallas. And then he tweets out a video and adds me in it. And there's like this hype music and players, I guess, analysts across the industry like throwing shade at him. And then there's my voice in the background. Like, what the hell is this? And why am I getting tagged in this video? And I'm glad he hasn't amounted to anything just because he did that to me.
Wait, was he tweeting it like, watch what I'm going to do? Because it was people throwing shade at him and you were one of the people in the video.
And it was constructive criticism. I'm trying to do NFL draft analysis. Anyway, yeah. DJ Dallas.
You just said you're glad he didn't amount to anything. That's not constructive at all.
I didn't say that in the video. I said that afterwards.
Right. That.
Yeah, because he's being a dick.
What was your criticism?
I said he wasn't a very good pass catcher and something else. I don't know. I'll tweet it out later. You guys can all see it.
That's good stuff. Yeah.
I have his bookmarked.
His picture on DraftKings looks like the Key and Peele, skit. You wouldn't know. You never watched it.
I've seen those.
Oh, you have? Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Any other running backs worth talking about? I think we hit on like the most important ones, but are you mixing in Dokes or Boone or any of these other guys that we haven't touched on?
Yeah, a couple of them, mostly Validate from that team. I'll talk about why in a second. I have 5 lineups with Dokes, 2 with Boone, playing 100. So hopefully give you a little bit of a reference point. It's kind of the same situation with Houston. You got to read the tea leaves. Because Stroud's playing, I think we do see a little bit of Pierce and Singletary. I think they probably just split the Stroud snaps before coming off the field. I don't think there's really any competition for Mike Boone right now as the RB3. He seems to have worked into that position if you just read camp reports. Agumbawale, if he plays a lot, he's just a pass-catching back. So I think situationally you see him. Validay's interesting. This is a guy that rushed for over 1,000 yards 3 times in his career. He's another transfer. He went to Wyoming for a bunch of time, and then he transferred to Arizona State. They've already seen Dokes a little bit. Dokes has been in the NFL longer. So if you're just looking at guys to salt away the game, maybe take a look at to run against Boone. Valladay is the guy I think they evaluate the most. GPP play. For running backs, focus your time on Minnesota. Focus your time on New England.
Hey, Matt, your projections and data, 25% off for the entirety of the week if people are looking to get their foot in the door. I'd say that's a good deal.
Yeah, I've been tweeting it out. I wasn't aware they were going to do this. I already think it's really cheap. It's $20 for the week. But today only, 25% off.
Yeah, I think it's a nice deal. Plus, you've got 16 games and 4 slates. So
and showdowns.
So like even if you're talking the main slates though, it's $4 a slate, some big prize pools, link in the description and in chat. You want all the match projections. You're not going to find better preseason projections. Listen to the dude talk about preseason football and tell me you think you're going to find better projections elsewhere with the knowledge base that this man has to develop these and all the depth charts and data and all of that stuff. 25% off for not just tonight. Like it's only tonight that you can get this. After tonight, it's gone, but it includes tonight's slate, Friday slate, Saturday slate, Sunday slate, and Matt said, as he pointed out, the showdown slates as well. So link in the description and chat, little flash sale action we're doing because we're that excited about football. Get yourself in the door for 25% off this week. All right, wide receiver. Is there a perfect place to start here, or should we just be? I bet Jordan Addison's going to be popular because people are just going to think, oh, he's playing today, and they're stoked to play him. But I can't imagine he plays a ton. Is there a place or a team to start? Because the wide receiver and pass catching positions in general for preseason kind of stink. It's hard to figure out and decipher where the best value is coming from, who's going to get the opportunities. So you guide this one. Where do you think we go first?
Let's start with New England. They've done this for a few years now where they rest most of their starters, and then they always carry Matthew Slater on the roster, and he never suits up for preseason. So they, by far, have the fewest bodies that are going to be active tonight. I'm projecting 6 receivers to be on the field. They did this last preseason. You were seeing guys get 40, 50 snaps in individual games, and a lot of really productive DFS scores came out of New England. We're going to see similar rotation tonight, I think. At the top, you have a couple guys I think they're going to really prioritize seeing because there's a bit of a position jockeying, if you will, for wide receiver 3, 4, and 5. I guess 4, 5, and 6 mainly. Kendrick Bourne probably locks down the 3, but you've got Tyquan Thornton from last year, second round pick. He's having a bad camp. There's been a lot of negative buzz about him. All that really says to me is they're probably going to evaluate him more against some of their draft picks. So I think Tyquan plays a ton. He's a former second round pick. They took 2 guys late this year who are the real competition for Tyquan Thornton. One of them is Demario Douglas. He was a 6th round pick out of Liberty. Not a big school, but this guy, great combine. He's 5'8", 192, ran a 4.44, and he's a player that's having an excellent camp. So this is the prime opportunity where he's going to be on the field with Tyquan, both getting opportunities. New England's going to try to see who's better. They also have Kayshon Boutte. He's another 6th round pick, came out of LSU, kind of tailed off at the end of his career, dealt with some injuries, but had an excellent freshman season. He's having another camp, getting a little more situational hype, not quite as much as Douglas. But I think they're going to start the game with these 3 and probably play them through at least a half, just trying to see where these guys can actually land in terms of pecking order on this team. But they're going to play second half guys too. So Trey Nixon, he's a guy that had a great preseason last year, 12 catches, nearly 170 yards. Raleigh Webb is there. And Thyrick Pitts. Pitts is probably the 6th option here. He was, I believe, previously with the Packers in the spring, got cut, and then New England picked him up. But regardless, you've got 6 guys. I think you want to play all 6 of them to some degree if you're running multiple lineups. But your 3 priorities should be Douglas, Thornton, and Boutte. They're probably the top 3 or 4 receivers according to projections. I haven't looked at them since this morning, so forgive me, but I know they're all highly projected.
We'll revisit wide receiver in 1 second, but I do want to ask you before we get to too close to the end here. We still have 17 minutes to lock, but do you have a preference as far as defense goes today?
I don't. I think you're probably looking at defenses in the second game just because you're probably facing at least a half of 3rd string QBs. And you've got Stroud in the early game. So, I mean, that's not ideal. You're going to face legit starters, the New England defense, that is. I spread this really evenly, just turned up some randomness. I have 30% Texans, 28% New England, 22% Vikings, 20% Seattle, but I literally put no time into those decisions. Just turned up randomness, took what I got.
What randomness? I mean, just as far as wide receivers go, though, like running backs, it's easy to say here, there's opportunity. They might not be good, but there's opportunity. Like Abanikanda last week, we know like he scored, but we knew there would be some chances there. Some of these guys at running back, you just know McBride, Chandler, Kevin Harris, those. But at wide receiver, looking over the Vikings and looking at Seattle and looking at Houston that has so many unproven guys. Like John Mechie hasn't played yet. He had leukemia. What type of opportunities he got? What about Tank Dell, who has been good in camp, but who knows if he pans out? Noah Brown, Xavier Hutchinson, all of these guys, man. Like, yeah, Robert Woods, Nico Collins, fine. We don't have to talk about that. But the Houston Texans have 100 different guys that could vie for that wide receiver 3 and wide receiver 4 spot, and we have no idea right now.
Right. I think the easiest thing you can do is just look at the depth charts. We have them on our website. Count the number of receivers that are active. That's going to significantly influence how many snaps and opportunities these guys get. And then from there, try to read the tea leaves and see where the competitions are. So to simplify this for you, you have 6 active receivers for New England, 8 for Minnesota, 9 for Seattle, and 12 for Houston. So Houston is going to run double the amount of receivers that New England is going to tonight. I think right away that's going to be huge for this offense, and we'll talk about them in a second. But right away, I think that's the place where you should start. We already broke down New England, so I think the next logical place to go is Minnesota, followed by Seattle. You have a 1 receiver difference in who's going to be active tonight. To your point, Addison plays. He's a tricky one for me. A lot of these highly drafted receivers that you see play early in the preseason, they might not get a lot of snaps, but they get targeted. They want to evaluate what these guys are going to do on the field. We've seen numerous examples of that. So I don't hate Addison. Like you said, I expect him to be owned. So I'd rather go a little bit further down the roster and take a stab on some of these position battles. You have a couple highly drafted players like Jalen Reagor's on this team. he's definitely battling for a roster spot. His ability to like return punts and stuff gives him a leg up, but I think they'll be evaluating him. They'll be evaluating guys like Brandon Powell. He's another return candidate, special teams candidate, and Reagor hasn't really separated himself. So you're going to see a lot of those guys. You need a backup slot. Thayer Thomas and Blake Prell are vying for that role. Prell's a 2021 UDFA. Thayer Thomas is the rookie they took this year. He's a UDFA, but you've seen Prell before. Thayer Thomas you haven't seen. So I think you do get a bit more Thayer Thomas. For Minnesota, I would be looking at Thayer Thomas first, Jalen Reagor and Powell second, Blake Prell would be the third. Mix in the ancillary pieces if you want. They're just going to get cleanup time. And then for Seattle, you got 9 healthy receivers here. Jackson Smith and Jigba should get the same exact treatment that Jordan Addison gets just based on the draft pedigree. Probably see him targeted a couple times and then off the field. But they're evaluating their wide receivers 4, 5, and 6 as well. You have a couple guys that are incumbents here, Cody Thompson and Cade Johnson, but a couple interesting young players. Matt Landers is a guy I think is going to get a lot of run. He's a UDFA out of Arkansas, 6'4", 200 pounds, but ran an incredible 4.37 40-yard dash. He'll be vying with a guy like Jake Bobo, who's having a great camp, but also a UDFA out of UCLA. So hopefully that makes sense. Those would be the top 4 guys I look for in the Seattle room and the Minnesota room.
All right. Did you hit Houston yet?
I did, and I was saving them for last.
Yeah, because this is a lot. And then once you do, we're going to just revisit this and kind of go over the top 5 or 6 options. Cause once we get through Houston, it's so much, man. There's so many guys that could be getting snaps tonight. Do you have a preferred guy? Like Dell Hutchinson's gotten some hype in camp. Mechie's coming back from the illness. Where do we go?
I think Dell and Hutchinson are the 2 top guys you look for here. I think you've got 4 guys that are pretty solid contributors for this team. Collins, Woods, Mechie. They probably all play just with the Stroud unit, get Stroud some reps with the starters. I don't think Noah Brown's at risk of losing a job here, but he's only returned to practice in the last couple days. He's been out for a little bit. Tank Dell and Hutchinson are guys that are battling for roles, and they're both rookies. I think you do see a fair amount of them probably get a handful of snaps with Stroud, but then I assume they're going to play a fair amount with Davis Mills, he's a starting quarterback from them last year. He's not the worst quarterback that's going to play today. So no, we don't like Davis Mills in terms of real NFL snaps, live bullets in the regular season, but for preseason, this is a pretty good QB. I would mix in Hutchinson and Tank Dell. I'll pull up my exposures right now. I think I've got a couple shares of them, but really focusing my attention. Yeah. Single digits on Noah Brown, Tank Dell, and Hutchinson, not playing anyone else from Houston, just with the sheer amount of bodies they have there. They don't have any injuries either is the problem. Like 12 healthy receivers.
I know. And 12 where it's just so hard to it's so hard to pinpoint which of these guys are going to be seen. I mean, at this point, honestly, it could be just one long pass, like one big play. And in the preseason, particularly on a 2-game slate, that ends up being all that matters. Across all 2 of the, or both of these games and all 4 of these teams, do you have any like at the top, clear cut top receiver option? That's what the audience is looking for here. Any guys you go, you know what? These are the guys that I want in my lineups and I'm going to have the most exposure to.
Top 3 would be Demario Douglas, Kayshon Boutte, Tyquan Thornton, all for New England. Those are the top 3 I would rank. Then I think there's a tier break. After that tier, you've got the other 3 New England receivers, Nixon, Webb, and Thyrick Pitts. I think they're kind of in the same tier as the 4 from Seattle and the 4 from Minnesota. I can revisit that if you'd like, but Houston by far the worst situation, I think, to target.
Yeah. It's like finding a needle in a haystack, really, trying to figure out which one of those guys it's going to be. And then at tight end, I hate spending a lot of time at this position, particularly like in the preseason. It sucks. In the regular season, it's fun, right? When you and I do shows together, we look at ownership, we look at stacks, and there's some really cheap guys that stand out. Like last year, Chiga Konkwo midseason was the man for a couple of those games at 2,500. A couple games where you got our boy Jelani Woods that had a game or 2. You get some cheap guys. But all of these tight ends are the same price. Many of them are strictly blocking tight ends, not going to get a ton of pass catching work. How much tight end exposure do you have to like among all your tight ends? What's your highest exposed tight end and how much?
I have 42% of Colby Parkinson, which
Wow. Okay.
I don't like. I've been actively trying to bring that down.
That's
He's
a
just
lot.
Seattle has the fewest bodies at tight end. And I mean, this is my personal stance is to turn randomness way up if you're using Fantasy Cruncher, like 75% or higher because it's so volatile. But the reason he has a higher projection is they just have the fewest bodies at tight end and they've got some blockers in there too. So I think for one lineup, you're trying to read the tea leaves here, play a tight end for Seattle. Fant's probably not going to play. He's not going to play at all. He's week to week. Disley, I don't think is going to play. He didn't play in week 1 last year. He was coming off an injury, but still, he's locked in. He has a role. And then they have 2 guys that are getting cut, like surefire cut guys, Noah Gindorf and Griffin Hebert. They're both getting cut. And Hebert's been dealing with an injury, so I don't know how much they even play. That leaves just Parkinson and Mabry. I think those are your top 2 guys, probably. Minnesota's a little more iffy. And then, I mean, New England, Matt Sokol played a ton last preseason, but even in like a huge preseason, he had 99 snaps. He only caught 4 passes. My recommendation is try not to have whatever it was, 42% of any tight end. Try to spread yourself even. Catch a guy that gets maybe 3 targets. If someone gets in the end zone, they're going to be in the GPP winning lineup for sure. But usually I'm looking for the team that just has the fewest amount of bodies, and I think that's Seattle.
What do you say we build a lineup here?
Yeah, let's do it. It's an interesting slate.
Yeah, for sure. Oh, one other thing, guys. One of our guys in that deals with sponsors and stuff reached out to me today right before the show. We have an exclusive deal with Jock Market between now and 5 p.m. tomorrow, where if you sign up using the promo code Stochastic10, link is in the description. Use that promo code Stochastic10, STOKASTIC10. You're getting an exclusive only to people who use this free square on Justin Verlander for the pick'em platform, half a strikeout. So free square, Justin Verlander, half a strikeout. It's good through today through 5 p.m. tomorrow, and it's over. Exclusive offer for Stochastic users. Pretty sweet. Plus first match deposit bonus, 100% up to $100. It's free money. You take advantage of it whenever you can. Get your deposit bonus up to $100, free money, and take advantage of the Justin Verlander free square. Also free money. So if you're not over there, take advantage of an exclusive offer that they've got. The Jock Market and Stochastic running this one up till tomorrow. Little free square action on Justin Verlander and 100% first match deposit bonus up to $100. Not bad. All right, let's go ahead and build one out here. We still got about 6 minutes, so people can maybe make some adjustments as we go. At quarterback, we've gone over the top options. Do you want to start with Jaren Hall? Should we throw Jaren Hall at the quarterback position?
Yeah, let's do it. And again, not a strong preference between Hall, McSorley, and Holton Ahlers. So
okay. Yeah, I mean, any of these guys are fine. Do you have any stacking options that stick out to you at all? Or do you not
Jaren
care?
Hall?
Yeah.
Yeah, I would. Thayer Thomas would be my number 1.
Let's plug him in. Maybe we'll get a Thayer Thomas from Jaren Hall touchdown and we'll be in business. Running backs, we'll worry about defense when it gets there. We'll go from this second game. We got to go with one of Ty Chandler and Dwayne McBride, and we got to go to this New England side as well. What pairing are you looking to go with? And we're going to throw a running back at flex anyway, right? So we're going to go with 3 of these guys.
Yeah, I would go Dwayne McBride.
Okay. Do we also want to throw Kevin Harris in here? What's your preference?
Yeah, I would throw Kevin Harrison.
You had mentioned earlier, and I'm with you, running 3 running backs in this instead of 4 wide receivers. So if we were to throw a third running back in at flex, I mean, do you want to go Chandler? Do we want to go another running back for the Patriots and Pierre Strong or JJ Taylor? Any preference here, just given that we've got Minnesota quarterback wide receiver already?
Yeah, for breaking ties, probably JJ Taylor for the second one. Just a slight preference, just a tiebreaker based on the fact that maybe Jaren Hall runs one and it takes one away from the Minnesota running backs.
Okay. Let's go second, third wide receiver here then. We'll go tight end and defense, wrap it up. Doesn't matter with defense. But wide receiver, We have Thomas in there. You had mentioned, and I looked at this in the projections. Dude, the top 4 projected wide receivers are New England today. So we're going to have to go there in some capacity. We already have 2 running backs for New England. Bill Belichick said that the most inexperienced guys are going to get the most action today, as we'd expect from week 1. How do you want to round out the wide receiver position?
And just for reference, I think this might be a little contrarian because people see that. All right, I got 2 New England receivers, 2 New England running backs. Like, I don't want that, especially without a QB. I have no issues with that. We're just trying to play the snap game. Who's going to be on the field the most? I think here we probably go one chalk New England guy and then play somebody deep like a second half guy, especially if we're playing tournaments. I think Douglas is going to be the highest owned here. So with him projected to play similar amount of snaps to Thornton and Boutte, maybe we can shave off some of that with a guy like Kayshon Boutte.
All right, wait. So you're saying go Douglas and Boutte?
No, I would go Boutte and then pick a second string guy, whether that's Nixon, Webb, or Pitts. I don't really care. But those guys are going to be way less owned than the top 3.
Okay. So you're cool having like a mostly New England. Well, it would be Harris, Taylor, Boutte, and then another New England wide receiver. No issues there at all?
None.
Okay. Nixon?
Yeah, let's do it. He was great last year.
All right. So defense, let's just throw the Seahawks in there. Or no, we'll throw the Vikings in there. Although I do think that's an interesting one. If you're worried about ownership, just go Seahawks defense against Hall and hope that they put up numbers and he still is productive. But we can go Minnesota here. Tight end. I mean, it sounds like from what you were saying earlier that the tight end of choice has got to be Colby Parkinson.
Yeah, and it's volatile. So I think if you want to get away from that, just play Tyler Mabry. He's in the same offense. Probably plays a little less. He's not quite the receiving threat as Parkinson, but we're rolling dice here.
All right. We have it. Boom. Appreciate you guys hanging out with us as always. We'll be back tomorrow. 6 games. That's when it starts getting interesting. We get a little bit of nuance there with the 6 games, but 2 games today. 6 games tomorrow, 6 games Saturday, 2 games Sunday. 25% off the entire week of NFL preseason projections. If you're not there yet, link in the description. Yeah, click that link. Get 25% off. Big slates, showdown slates. You know you're ready for football. What better way to dip your toes in than right now getting quarter off, 25% off everything. Follow Matt at Matt_Gajewski for some great insight on Twitter. Me at Lafayette_D. Shout out to Jordan Klein for producing this one. We'll see you back here tomorrow night, 6-game Friday slate. Good luck, guys.